We do have a couple of things here. There were questions about, I was excited to see the governor's final budget, the state budget, come out. And actually, I'd like to invite Liam Hurley, and I hope you give me this leeway in the beginning to have my central staff members support me as we share information. But having come from a district that every year waited to see that final budget, there are some pluses, and I think you're aware of them, but would like certainly our Newton community to hear about some of the impacts just very quickly on our budget.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Liam Hurley here, Assistant Superintendent CFO. Just passing out a little history on Chapter 70 funding. This was a question that came in, so just wanted to give a little history and context on the Chapter 70. That is the state formula that provides aid to districts. This is just an overview of this. Kind of through the last minute maneuverings, Newton is what's considered a minimum aid district given our wealth. There's a whole formula. At some point I'd be happy to walk through to the committee how that formula works. Newton, as a minimum aid, received what's called the $60. They increased this from $30 per student to $60 per student. So the simple math is $60 times our foundation enrollment, which is in that FY23, which is really based on last year's information, which is 12,007 students. So Newton got about $720K. This was several $100,000 more than what I believe the city was projecting. I've talked to the city CFO. They also, on the flip side, the city also gets what's called unrestricted general government aid on their cherry sheet. They did have some more outflows going on in the school choice sending. So we have some more students leaving Newton, and oftentimes that's going to other districts. That's oftentimes teachers that may be residing in Newton that go into other districts. So there was an increase of about $100,000 net to the school choice sending amounts. But overall, a little bit of good news. Again, the overall increase for Chapter 70 was 2.83. You could see that there was some larger increases back in FY 18-19. I think some of that was before some of the Student Opportunity Act money really came into play, really funding a lot of the lower income communities throughout Massachusetts. I know our new interim superintendent can speak a lot about that and was a great advocate for many of those communities. So Newton did get something here, again, not a significant amount, but it was a nice increase. So happy to chat about anything on this spreadsheet or anything else on Chapter 70.
Kathy, do you have anything more, or should we just
I think
questions on Liam?
The only other thing would be the universal school lunch.
Sure,
program.
happy to talk about that. So as you also heard, the all school districts in Massachusetts are going to have what are called universally free lunches. So we are going to get a reimbursement. That reimbursement rate is, I believe, is $4.33 per lunch. Remember, that is the first lunch. So if a student takes a second lunch, our enacted school committee rates will actually apply. If you remember, we increased those rates, also, as well as any a la carte item that a student purchases kind of outside the typical reimbursable meal. In speaking with Amy, we're meeting with Whitson's to kind of look at this final analysis. That is going to be a lower amount than what we were receiving in the SSO, which was called Summer Seamless Option. That was the term they used for operating these last few years. I think certainly this is good for students and good for all students. I think having universally free meals is a good thing. We're curious to see what happens into the future, so I don't know what that's going to be. Operationally, we are back to what's called Congregate Seating, where the students need to eat in the cafeteria versus kind of being dispersed all over the place. So I do expect some operational issues just coming back into that, going through what's even a point of sale system. We need to go through that. So working with Toby and Aisha and the principals, I think there's going to be a little bit of transition. It's been a couple years. There's even going to be students that have never even done that. It's been kind of a grab and go type style. So we've got our hands cut out. I know Amy's hyper focused on this, which is fantastic. So we're going to get through that piece. And I think you also know, a big goal for us is really trying to increase the quality. Food costs have gone up, so we're Amy's got a target of about $1.79 food costs, so we're going to be increasing that from where it is right now. We want to get this quality a bit better than where it's been. So overall, we're ending our, I feel pretty confident we're going to be ending still in a positive position. We're ending this year in a good position. We're also working with David Stickney to make sure we continue kind of a replacement program with a lot of the equipment that's really aged in a lot of our buildings. So they've identified a list and want to keep ticking away at that. But so overall, I think a positive thing for Massachusetts and for Newton. We got to watch that budget very closely, but I'm confident we'll still end up in a break even on our food service program.
It is almost certainly way too early to ask this, but if we see several $100,000 of a benefit net across what across the state allocations, school meals, etc. Do we have any thoughts where that would be applied?
So great question, and I've worked with the city. So again, that Chapter 70 money is actually considered general fund money, which goes to the city, so the schools does not get that allocation. We've had some times where the city has gotten an increased allocation. Right now, there's not been a discussion of that. I would probably turn to my central staff team. I know that there's always a need for staffing, and particularly some of our vulnerable population that we would look for in trying to increase that. So the list is very long, Rajiv, on what we would do. And then just as a very cursory update, ending our FY22 in a very strong position. Certainly we've surpassed our $3.5 million. If you recall, we needed that just to land our FY23. Right now, it looks like we could be even about $1 million beyond that amount. So we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a cushion. We do have a number of things that between the superintendent search, several FTEs, a few things that I think that we will be going over budget than expected. I will be reporting out to you on that, but feel good about where we're ending the FY22 year. So giving a lot of updates here, but I want you folks to feel comfortable that we're ending in a good position from my perspective.